Hey guys, welcome to the coreross channel. Today we've got a really complicated subject. So this dev blog was posted by the developers and it's super complicated, but it explains the kind of hit registration in that in Rainbow Six Siege. It explains like PEEKER Advantage and all that. So we're going to go over one aspect of it, and that is this video, which is titled PEEKER, and I want to explain it. So watching it back in real time, it's really hard to understand what the hell is going on. There's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of really quick things that happen that are just like, unless you slow it down and go frame by frame, you're going to have no idea what the hell is actually happening. And they also give this really cool little animated graph that shows us exactly what happens in the three scenarios that they show. So I'm going to explain this first because even though it's really well made, it's still pretty complicated. So we can see that there's a player 1 with 200 millisecond ping, there is a player 2 with 100 millisecond ping, and there is a server in the middle. So of course we play on dedicated servers, which means the information from your game client gets sent to the server, it gets processed, and then it gets sent out from the server to the other players. So if you have a really high ping, it takes longer for your information to get to the server, which means it then gets distributed out to the other players later, giving you an advantage. So this is all about how they're going to potentially solve that and make it better. Maybe not quite solve it, but they're certainly working on it. So there's two ways this can go with the two different players with the different pings. So if they were both in the game just facing each other, and in real life they both pulled the trigger at exactly the same time, what would happen is both of them would see their guns, muzzle flash and shoot, but the player with a lower ping, that information would get to the server quicker, which means that player 1 who's got the higher ping would die, and player 1's information that's getting sent to the server saying I fired a shot and got a headshot, the server will actually reject that because it's already got information saying that that player died. So player 1 is dead and player 2 won the battle because they're both shooting each other exactly the same time, but player 2 wins because he has a lower ping. But higher pings get an advantage when it comes to movement. So if player 1 is moving and like moving around a corner, he will see player 2 who may be standing still. This is PEEKER Advantage, because player 1 will see player 2 standing there because he's standing there. That information is already on the server, he hasn't moved. Player 1's information gets sent to the player 2 later, which means player 1 sees him first, which of course means player 1 can shoot first. And that means he can then have an advantage because that player effectively gets an advantage of seeing you quicker. If they both have the same reaction time, it means player 1's going to win even though he has a bad ping. And the worse that ping is, the more you get to see that player before they see you. So that can be known as ping abuse. So you have PEEKER'S Advantage, which happens no matter, if you both have really good pings, it doesn't matter. PEEKER is always going to have an advantage. There's no way around that. Whereas ping abuse means that if you have a really high ping, you're going to see that player way before you should. So let's go through the three different examples they give, and we'll actually slow it down frame by frame. So the first example is the victim. The victim doesn't actually die in any of these examples, so it's kind of odd to call him the victim. He's basically the person just standing still. And this person has a reaction time of 150 milliseconds and a ping of 100 milliseconds. The PEEKER has a reaction time of 300 milliseconds and a ping of 100 milliseconds. So the PEEKER is basically worse than the victim. They're both equally good at getting headshots, but the PEEKER is just way slower at doing it. So if we actually watch this back and we freeze it right here, we can see that the PEEKER gets to see the victim first. So these two players have the same ping, but the PEEKER gets to see that player before the other one. And if we move on, we get to see that the victim takes the shot first because of their quicker response time. However, you can see that the PEEKER also takes a shot right after the victim. But of course, that gunshot from the victim and the PEEKER are heading to the server at the same speed, which means that the victim's shot is going to get to the server first, which means the victim is going to kill the PEEKER. That's why it's weird that they call it the victim. So the victim will get the kill, as we see, and the PEEKER dies. Now, of course, what happens now is that the peeker immediately uploads their clip to Reddit and does a big rant about hit registration. So the next example is that everything is exactly the same, except the peeker now has a worse ping than the victim. We can see again that the peeker gets to see the victim before the victim sees them. Now we see that the peeker has just fired a shot before the victim fires. And then moving on, we can see that the victim has now taken a shot after the peeker. So in real life terms, these two people are sitting down playing the games, and the peeker did fire first, but the victim fired second. But because the victim has a better ping, that information is going to reach the server quicker, which means that the peeker dies. The third example is the peeker with a 400 millisecond ping, everything else being exactly the same. And this is, I think, to show that the people with the large pings are now going to be at a big disadvantage. So we see in this example that the peeker is getting to see the victim way before the victim actually sees the peeker. So you can see that was a considerable amount of time that the peeker could see the victim. But as we will see, and you can see again, the peeker fires first and the victim fires later, quite a bit later. And again, that information gets sent off to the servers, and the server verifies that indeed the victim gets the kill because the information gets to the server faster, which means the peeker dies, even with a 400 millisecond ping and the advantage of seeing that person way before the other person. The victim still manages to win it. Now, I actually would love to see this example with both of them having exactly the same reaction times, because if they're both like equally good players, I'm guessing the ping would still give them like a really good advantage. Now, the downside to this system is that people with really bad pings are going to see really bad hit registration. Of course, they're then going to make clips of that really bad hit registration. And of course, there's no way to tell when you're looking at the clip that that person had a really bad ping. So I think that's probably why they're adding in these new icons. These will actually show up on your screen, kind of to the right of your screen when you're playing, and let you know the connection you currently have. So if you've got a really bad ping, then the ping icon is going to show up. So of course, you then make a clip, put it on YouTube of all the bad hit registrations. People will be able to tell that you actually had a really bad ping. And this should help them hopefully also kind of figure out if something's not quite working right. They'll be able to look at these clips and see what kind of icons are showing up and potentially then rectify those problems in future patches, because this is an ongoing thing. But I thought that this would kind of help to explain some of this, and hopefully I've actually got it correct, because it is a really complicated subject. Now, to finish this off, I thought I would talk about this graph that they made. I think it's really beautiful, but also I want to just emphasize that it's a graph of 1 second, and the actual action happens in less than half a second. So that's amazing. Like, you know, my server that I play on for Rainbow, I'm pretty sure is based in Europe, so it's probably a couple of 1,000 miles away from me. And to think that all that information from all those different players can be processed by the server in milliseconds is just crazy. So I actually want to play this graph back in real time of how it's actually playing out, you know, because the graph is nice and slow, it looks really beautiful and all that, but it doesn't really represent the actual real-time speed of what's going on. So let's just watch this graph in real time. So there you go, that's how fast everything happens. And of course, that like half a second is the point where you need that hit registration to be working correctly. So hopefully, with this mid-season reinforcements, we're going to get better hit registration for the good pinged players, and it will actually get worse for the high ping players, which I think is kind of fitting, I guess. But anyway, we'll see how this all plays out over the next couple of weeks. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope that explained things pretty well. I have no idea if it did. Let me know in the comments below if you understand better now. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.